No, just grab him already! Oh, I've had it with this game! What's up? Low key, this game sucks. Whoa, calm down there. What are you saying? Exactly what I said. This game controls so badly. I mean, it may be the fact that we're using a Switch Pro controller. No! I refuse to believe that's the case. Okay, calm down. So tell me, what's wrong with the game? Well, this game is obviously not perfect. It has its fair share of problems and that's fine. This game had to be built from scratch, you know, so it's not like it could be exactly like how the old games were. A new engine being used with no game before it having a base to improve on, so it's obvious that this game would come out with so many problems. As of now, the first ever big patch for this game came out, and it's great. However, there are still problems with the gameplay, I would say, and that's what I want to talk about. Wait, what the? I thought you were gonna talk about the game's graphics and the design choices. No, when did I ever say that? If you want, you could do that after. Oh, okay, I could do that. Starting with one of my least favorite things in this game so far, defense. Don't get me wrong, I do think this series needed more defense options, but somehow, this game makes it feel like there's no real point in offense. In Tenkaichi 3, offense felt very oppressive with very limited defense options, but in this game, defense feels like a major part of this game. That's great and all, but what's not great is how easy some things are. The patch did tweak some things to do with defense, but that doesn't change the fact that it still feels more oppressive than offense. Super counters somewhat really easy to do in this game. Sure, I'm not good enough to get it very consistently, but if you just mash up and square, you'll get it eventually. Z counters have been tweaked for the good, so I'm not really going to say much for that. It's a lot more fun to do the vanish battles, and when it gets really fast, it feels very rewarding. However, the one thing I really hate in this game is perception and anything to do with it. Believe it or not, standard controls is the best control scheme to use in this game simply because you can abuse perception a lot more than classic. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this game was mainly built around this control scheme and classic controls was an afterthought. Perception is one button in standard controls, which makes whatever overriding that has to be done for classic controls non-existent. I swear, everyone online just spams this mechanic. Why? Because if anything, I'd say it's low risk, high reward. You miss your attack? How about perceptioning because the opponent is more likely to attack you right after? Stopped your perception? Why don't you activate it again? It's not like this move has an end lag in between the activations. That alone would make this mechanic a lot more balanced if anything. I may be remembering this wrong, but I think in Tenkaichi 3, perceptions did have lag in them, so it would be really risky to actually use perception. Why not make the ki consumed when using this mechanic also be a lot more draining to make it so people aren't just using this as a failsafe? Anything to limit this mechanic, I'd welcome. And finally, the grab counters are really forgiving. I'd be deep into the start animation of a grab where you could even hear the damage effects and all, but you would still be able to break out. It makes no sense why grabs are this easy to break out of. This is something that should be tweaked just like the Z counters, where it should feel a lot more precise with timing. Revenge counters aren't that impressive honestly, so that gets a pass. And that's really it for the defensive stuff. You know what? I agree with this. Post-patch did fix up some defense options like defending Ki Blasts, which were the only oppressive offense option in this game, but defense is pretty strong. Yep, so that's why I want some sort of patch for offense as well. I've said this a bunch already, but offense feels so unrewarding in this game. You could be comboing and it's so easy to break out of it. Whether it's doing a super counter or just simply pressing guard, combos just feel like they aren't worth going for. And that really sucks because there are so many different strings you can go for in this game that it feels like you'll only see about 3 in a match. That's pretty much like saying you're playing a fighting game and while you're comboing the opponent,
opponent, they simply block the combo, even though you didn't drop it or mistime it. I don't know if this is just an issue on my end, but I find myself randomly just unable to control the character properly. It may just be something to do with online since it's a lot more common for that to happen there. But sometimes my inputs just randomly decide to not register. Probably some controller issue. But you know what's not a controller issue? Hard knockdowns. This is single-handedly the worst thing in this series. If you don't know what these are, there are some points in time where you can absolutely not recover from a move no matter how much you mash the recover button. They were a thing since Tenkaichi 1 and they make a return in this game. And since this game doesn't show you a prompt for recovery like the past games, you never know if you're hard knocked down or just have to keep on mashing to recover. This is different from when you're low health and it's harder to recover. The easiest way to see this feature is with beams, especially the skinny ones like the death beam. If you get hit by this, you can't recover until you land on the ground. So more times than not, you will most certainly get comboed by another attack. This is something they actually decided to nerf Mr. Satan on, which is funny, because if you do the present bomb attack, you can loop it since the opponent will be in a hard knockdown state. This wouldn't be much of a problem if this feature just didn't exist. A similar thing works with Vidal. One last thing I want to go over with offense, there are times where it feels so slow. I'm specifically referring to the super dash follow-ups. Anything to do with the super dash when following up a move makes the character feel like you're going in slow motion. It doesn't help that stages are huge. This is also the case with rush type supers where they're so easily reactable to. I don't get it. They made Ki Blast and Beam super fast, but rush is super slow. They should either be both slow or both fast. And I'd lean towards fast if I had to choose.
Now that you mention it, this game does play pretty strangely, doesn't it? I'm pretty sick of it, to be honest. I'm not, but you know what I am sick of?
This game can just look so wrong at times. The game is so beautiful, but when it doesn't look good, it really just doesn't look good. The number one complaint I have about character models is for the small characters. Their bodies look so tiny with big heads. This especially looks terrible with Master Roshi. I get how he's supposed to look skinny and whatnot, but I really don't like the portions for his model. Compare it to Fighters and you can see a clear difference. Obviously, those two games have different art styles, but that doesn't mean the portions can't be the same. The Kid Goku variants all look weird to me as well. They just don't match that oomph they had in the older games for some reason. This is a trait that even extends to Kid Trunks, Goten, and even Gotenks. Also, for some reason, there are times where the outlines for their facial features, like their noses or mouths, just don't exist. This isn't limited to the small characters. There are times where the normal sized characters just don't have them in certain angles, and it really just annoys me. I don't know what happened when making some of the models, but I guess you can't truly blame them for making over 100 new models from scratch. Bear in mind, the playable characters aren't the only characters they modeled, but the one good thing they did with this patch is actually make the light look cooler. I don't know if this is a bug or not, but I actually like how the characters glow at times. It makes the game look better in a way. There's also something wrong with the transformations in this game. I don't know why, but if you aren't a character who can become a Super Saiyan, fuse, or is a major villain, you will have the most anticlimactic transformation sequence. 1 second they're one form, and then all of a sudden they become their transformed state. Even if it's just making them quickly flash or something, just make it look a bit more appealing. Moving away from the characters, I've talked a lot about the stages in this game. Not only do they somehow lack the charm the old games brought to them with the Easter eggs, the few stages you can choose from, and the inability to look through the water, they also make barriers impossible to see. There are so many times I would be playing and reach one end of the map without even noticing it. It makes fighting in that area so annoying given the fact that any knockback done to your opponent would just be stopped by the barrier. The old games had some sort of wall bounce to make it easier to continue some sort of combo, but this game makes fighting next to the barrier so awkward. Not only can you barely see it, but interactions just don't work very well. I also talked about the fact that there are some stages that you can never choose and are only playable in the story mode. I will say this now, but if the normal Tournament of Power stage was choosable, that would probably be the second most chosen stage after the Hyperbolic Time Chamber. Speaking of the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, what have they done to you? I get they're trying to go for a more anime or manga accuracy, but I used to love the stage in the old games. The reverb, the way everything looks so mysterious yet intriguing to look at. The old version had it all, but then they went and made it dull. I remember how excited I was to see what the Hyperbolic Time Chamber would look like in this game, only to end up disappointed. Who knows? Maybe I'm the only one complaining about this one since it's the smoothest stage to run performance-wise, and it isn't very distracting, but I never felt like it was distracting in the old games to begin with. Also, I don't want to go too in depth with the problem the World Tournament stage has, but just so you know, ring outs in this stage are so unbelievably bad. It's almost like they never actually intended to include them until later on. I went over that a lot more in my initial review, just so you know. I'd like to divert your attention to this game's menus. I haven't talked too much about this in my review, but I really think this is the weakest Tenkaichi game to do it. The main menu is the best menu in the game. The visual for the main menu's backgrounds are cool, but the sub-menus make it so messy. I would have been fine if they just made another 2D menu because I found those so much more charming. This one could have been charming too if the characters reacted to every option you choose or something. It just barely passes for me because after you're done choosing through the sub-menus, you do get a cool cutscene. However, there are some modes with terrible menus that really could have done well with the 2D concepts I bought up not too long ago. The tournament mode and the custom battle are some that would be perfect for this, just to name a few. As I said in the review, they remind me of the Raging Blast 2 menus. They're lucky that they changed the character select screen in the newest patch. I'm not going to say this is the most perfect solution, but I'll easily take this over what they gave us at the start. Still would have liked to see the character renders in game. Finally, I want to talk about the modes, or at least the lack of modes. This game took out many single player modes which ended up taking away from the content. Maybe I don't always want to play online, you know, but the problem is, there are no real modes or challenges to do after you've played them all. Sure, there's custom battles, but I'm not trying to spend much time on that mode right now. That mode has its own problems to deal with right now. What happened to the survival modes that existed in the old games? The one thing close to a parallel quest mode in this game are the bonus battles. I didn't talk about this during my review, but these are pretty much pre-made custom battles from the developers. Some allow you to unlock characters and the rest are pretty much showing you what you can do with this mode. That's cool and all, but none of them are hard, which is another problem with this game. I won't lie, there are times during the episode battles where the game was actually somewhat difficult, but it didn't feel like I would struggle too hard on it. If you're wondering, no, it's not the Great Ape mission. I did that on my first try, but the real challenge comes when trying to unlock the alternate story paths, because a majority of them require you to beat the level in a set amount of time. And I'll tell you, the time limit can feel so tight at times. Anyways, CPUs in general are nowhere near hard. Even if you put them in the super difficulty, they would be constantly regressing to their base form for characters that have that ability, only vanish no more than 2 times during a vanish battle, making it hard to practice that, using the defensive options that were talked about earlier more than anything, and just really annoying to fight than actually being hard. The computers in this game are just not it. Please, I beg you, patch up stuff that single player would benefit from. Not all of us always want to play online, especially because it's filled with people who like to cheese more than anything.
So what? Should I just hate the game now? Slow down there. I literally just talked about the game not too long ago and gave my verdict there. Plus you saw what they did with the recent patch. Yes, that is true. It seems that this game still has some potential. Now you're talking. All we can really do is wait and give feedback whenever the chance arises. I see. In other words, I have to play as Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta online. What the? How did you end up with that conclusion? Well, I mean, if everyone's playing the broken characters online and I can't beat them, then I might as well join them, right? Oh boy. I'm sorry for his behavior, guys. Looks like I'm gonna have to teach him a lesson. Wait, what?